Hi, it's Diana. I am outside on my porch. It's a cloudy, drizzly day. If you asked my husband Michael, he would say it's cold. If you ask me, I would say it's pleasant. But it is cooler than normal for living on an island. And this seemed a good setting to talk about The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. It is true that the whole story does not take place in the winter. And the car passing, and the part that does take place in the winter is a much more frigid winter than this cool, nice weather. So the lion, however, I said but, however, it's still kind of like it's a gloomy day, which is a perfect day to read a book, in my opinion. Suddenly my street is very busy. So The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe is the second book. It was written first, but it's the second book in the Narnia series. I read it when I was young. I think I only read 2 of the series, and my older child read it when they were young too. And I'll start with the characters. Before I start with that, I've been thinking about, because as I was reading this book, like, oh, this is similar to blank that we talked about, or this is similar to blank that we talked about. And I not realized, because I kind of knew this, but it brought to mind this idea that I have. I used to call it a well. Like, we all have this well of experience with books. And when we're younger, our well is empty because we don't have any experience with books. And then the well gets filled up as either somebody reads to us when we're very little, or we read. And as your well fills up with books, you start to make connections. So that, like for me, reading The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe brought up other books that we've read. Like the Turkish delight, the food that we're going to talk about, shows up in chapter 4, which is, I think, when the Puttanesca showed up in a series of unfortunate events. That kind of connection shows up more and more the more books you read. Maybe one time I'll draw a book tree of the books that we've read to see how they connect. And they don't have to really connect, as in C.S. Lewis and Ursula Le Guin don't have to have been friends or read each other's work to have similarities in their books. Now, if you're writing a research paper, that's a whole other story, but we're not writing research papers. We are just making connections in our own brains and thinking of our books. We start thinking of your books not just individually, but how they relate to each other. Kind of like your friends. Some of your friends never meet, but they might have similarities. And maybe that's why they're in the group that you call friends. So some of the books that I read, they may never have met, but they fit into that group that I call books I've read, because I tend to like similar things, and I find them in books. And I've gotten to an age where there was a time where I would read books, and even if I didn't like it, I felt obligated to finish. I don't feel like that anymore. Some people never feel like that. Okay, so the story of The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. The first thing we do is talk about characters. So this is a longer work. Again, it is one of the series. This is the 3rd one we've done. That's one of a series. And it's at the beginning of the series, also where we have pulled our books. This is the 2nd, I just said that, but it's still at the beginning of the series. I want to say there are 9 Narnia books, but I'm not positive. There are a lot of characters, and a lot of them fill the supporting role character. So we're not going to worry about the supporting role character, but this is another fantasy book, like Wizard of Earthsea. So it's populated, it's a whole world, and it's populated. It's got a lot of beings in it. The main 4 characters are a set of siblings. The eldest is Peter, and then there's Susan, and then Edmund, and then Lucy. So they're siblings. and they a lot work as a group, but they also have some differences. For example, Lucy tends to be a little free spirit, and she has an active imagination. And so when she comes back and says, hey, guess what? I've entered a new world, it's easy for her siblings to say that she's making it up. Edmund plays the role of he's not really an antagonist all the way, but he does play the role of being, I hate to say the word bad. He does things that don't help the group, that hurt the group, that he thinks will advance himself by himself. Okay, that sounds bad. Like, that is bad. Okay. And then Peter, being the oldest kid, he kind of takes a leadership role. The kids are, I'm going to do a little bit of events getting with the characters. So they are living for the time being in the professor's house. The professor doesn't have a huge role, like time-wise. He's not in the book a lot. He's in several places, but he does have a good role in that he is there, not just as the adult figure that's taking care of the kids or the guardian of the kids at this time. My dog is going to want to go in. Or he's not just the owner of the house, so he supplies this area that they're living in, but he also adds credibility to their experience. So there are times when they come back and they tell him, like, my sister is saying that she went through the back of the wardrobe into another world, and he doesn't go, okay, well, that's ridiculous. Other worlds don't exist. My dog did want to go in, and she just went in. She's good now. In about 5 minutes, she'll want to come back out, as long as I'm out here. So he legitimizes their experience to them, because it's somehow comforting to have an adult who wasn't with them say that could happen, but also to the reader, that he doesn't dismiss their experience. So as readers, we don't dismiss it either. We have no reason to, because nobody else is dismissing it. Okay. There's a lady who's like the housekeeper. She's a supporting character. So that's pretty much the characters that live in the, I'm going to call it regular world of England. They live in England, in the regular England. The other world, now my neighbors are coming out, I'm going to have to be quiet. The other world is the world of Narnia, and it has its own host of characters. The first character that we meet is Mr. Tumnus. He is a faun. A faun is a kind of goat-ish character that stands up on 2 legs and has human features. So it's got like goat feet, but people hands, and it's people's face, but it might have ears and horns. If you think of Pan, if you are a Greek Roman mythology person, Pan, I think Pan is Greek, and they're called satyrs. A lot of times you see him with the little piped lute instrument. So he is a faun, Mr. Tumnus. He is a nice character who, his role is that he introduces Lucy to the world of Narnia. He also helps Lucy to see the beginning to see what's going on in Narnia, that it's not just a beautiful land, a magical land where we can skip and have fun and meet magical creatures. It's a place that is having a serious power struggle, and things aren't going well, and we can talk about that more with events. So that's Mr. Tumnus. The next character, since we're talking about things not going well, is the White Witch. She calls herself the Queen of Narnia, and she is the main antagonist. Now, we did not have a book like this, where this book has pretty black and white or very evenly divided, good and bad. A couple of characters cross, but mostly these are the bad characters, these are the good characters. The witch is definitely a bad character, and she calls herself the Queen of Narnia, and so do the bad characters. Just trying to see who shows up next. The next Narnia characters are the Beaver couple, Mr. and Mrs. Beaver, and they kind of take off from where Mr. Tumnus kind of gave like an overview. These are little parts about Narnia. They give a lot of information about Narnia, and by this time when we meet the Beavers, all of the kids are there, and they are telling this story of Narnia and what's going on, who's bad, who's good, this is why it's like this is what we have to be careful of. So they are very important characters to get the kids' knowledge up on where they are and what's going on. The last character that has a major role I'm going to go with is Aslan. And Aslan is a big old lion, and he is definitely a good character. He is the witch's counterpart. He is the one who's going to save the day and save Narnia. He is the character that I'm out of focus. He is the character that the witch is afraid of. Okay, so those are the characters. Yeah. There are a lot more, like I said, because there are two whole armies worth of characters. There's a dwarf who drives the witch around. There's a wolf who is like her guard. A whole bunch of characters. Those are the main ones. I might have to go in because now I'm starting to think